Okay, so I've removed the coil and ignition switch. This is the original plate to go behind that, and that I'll still use. This is the new bracket to mount it on the side of the motor, and these screws came with the kit. Little rubber bushings, and then this is I believe to mount the switch. So new cables also came with it. Okay, so very simply just remove these bolts from the top of the cylinder heads, mount your ignition coil on the bracket mounts up with those two bolts, and then your key cylinder here mounts on this ground bolt on the back of the primary cover. So you just have to run your wires back. You'll have to cut some tape and stuff like that. No big deal. Then of course all this will have to get tucked up under, probably wrap it up with some electrical tape or something, kind of clean it all up, bundle it up together, and tuck it up out of the way. And then of course spark plug wires will be reattached here. Okay, so I've got the ignition coil mounted on the other side, as well as the ignition switch. I've put a little tape on this already. What I'm going to do is just wrap all this in electrical tape. I still have not wired in the controls yet. Got to do that. But right now I'm going to kind of go ahead and clean things up a little bit with some electrical tape like I did on this one. And then I will start soldering all the connections and extending any wires that need it, which is probably going to be all the control wires, just to make sure there's enough slack in them. Okay, as you can see now, I have wrapped up all those multicolored wires. So they're black, they'll hide a little bit easier. They will get tucked up over the frame though as well. Taken and kind of tied stuff together in just a common sense, logical manner to kind of clean it up. Over here, I've done the same thing. The wires from the ignition switch, I've taped up black and then taped them to this fuel line here and run it up so that it's just kind of clean, no additional extra wires running around that you can see. Other than that, everything is just kind of wrapped up, tucked up, and before it's over, I'll take some zip ties probably or something and kind of mount those up. But and then of course this will all be out of here. That'll be open. Okay, I have all of these wires soldered and shrink wrapped individually here with this shrink tubing. Now I should point out that depending on your application, you may not need to do this. It was kind of a choice that I made to get the wires to go through the handlebars internally. It was just easier to cut the plugs off, and then since I know how to solder, I just soldered it. If you can't do that, if you don't have a soldering iron or you don't know how to solder, you may be better off with a different route, but that's what worked for me. I'll now take and just wrap that up with probably some more electrical tape or something to insulate it. But anyway, there's that. I've actually already reinstalled the main fuse. As you can see, I've got lights on here and everything is working. turn signals, emergency flashers, the odometer switch is working. You can see here I have 777 miles on this bike as well. High beams are working, everything's working, so all is good. And of course, cranks right up. Okay, so as you can see, I've got all these wires tied up with some zip ties. Everything's pretty much done as far as the tank lift, except for putting in the little brackets, which I'll get to in just a second. It's kind of dark in my garage, apologize, but anyway, got the clutch cable all tied up, out of the way, leaving that open space. Like I said, at this point, it's basically just a matter of putting in these brackets. Everything else is pretty much there. I actually just did a little test ride. Everything's working properly as far as the throttle, clutch, brake, all that good stuff. Now for the tank lift brackets, all I've done is actually went down to Home Depot and bought some 2-inch U-bolts and just taken little brackets off of those. I've spray painted them black. On my last bike I actually powder coated these things, but since I'm doing all this at my house instead of at the shop, I just threw some black spray paint on them, so that'll work.